This case had numerous locations, numerous incidents.
It definitely grew into something bigger.
So describe spotlighting a little bit for me.
So when a light gets shown in their eyes, they're stunned. So they just stand.
They woke up one morning and there were just 6 deer dead in their front yard. Possibly 55 deer for these two individuals.
The big thing was communication between the suspects. It was a lot of, hey, do you want to go out tonight? Let's see how many we can kill tonight.
Hello, and welcome to another edition of Virginia True Wildlife Crime. Today we're going to be talking about a spotlighting case that our senior conservation police officer, Derrick Rickels, investigated in 2023. This case spanned 2 counties and hundreds of miles in Southwest Virginia. Hey, Officer Rickels, how are you today?
Doing well, thank you.
Thanks for driving all the way across the state to be with us. We appreciate it.
No problem.
As this case had numerous locations, numerous incidents, I think probably the best way to get started is to do chronological. So when was the first call that we got?
Okay, so the first call we got was on June 10th. We got a report of 1 deer found, shot. Gunshots were heard. No other information was given. No vehicle description or anything like that.
So just one shot. There was a deer?
Mm-hmm.
Okay,
yeah.
But nothing.
No other information.
Else.
That was literally all they could give us.
All right. So in situations like that, what do we typically do?
We'll usually go out and try to find any evidence, talk to neighbors if we can, but we weren't able to find any other information. So what we usually do in our area, we'll send out a group message, just all the officers that work the area, so they're aware that this may be a problem. It may be a one-off or it may be something bigger.
And in this case, it turned out to be something bigger.
It did end up being something bigger. We didn't know it at the time, obviously, but it definitely grew into something bigger.
So just a few days later, and we had another call.
Yeah. So on the 19th, I received a call. A homeowner had found 6 deer that had been shot in the field right across the street from their house.
So they woke up one morning and there were just 6 deer dead in their front yard.
Yeah. So they have a hayfield. Their house sits on one side of the road. The hayfield's on the other side. And as soon as they came out, the deer were within a couple hundred yards of their house.
That's got to be a little disturbing.
Right. This area of the county, it has a high deer population. So seeing deer isn't uncommon in that area, but to see that many dead in that one location was definitely alarming to them. So
you came out?
Yeah. So I arrived on the scene, spoke with the landowners. They said they went to bed 9 o'clock, never heard any shots, and then woke up that morning and obviously found the deer and called us. I went on scene, located the deer. They appeared to all have been shot with a similar large caliber rifle. Wasn't able to locate any shell casings. Again, no vehicle description. While I was on scene, another landowner that was passing by saw me, stopped, and told me that there had been some other deer that they had found a little bit further down, closer to the Lee County line.
Wow.
So when I went down there, at one spot I found 3 additional deer, all shot from the road, or appeared to be shot from the road, all within probably 50 to 25 yards from the road. All large caliber, no information, no vehicle description, no shots heard.
So we're at 8 deer in one night?
Right. Got some more information while I was on that call on the Lee County side. So this road goes right through the county on both ends, and found 2 more dead deer, a 6-pointer and a doe, all shot in, it was a guy's garden right across the street from a old country store. Again, no shots heard, no information provided. And then we did get some information later on that on the Tennessee side, they had found some dead deer, but we weren't really sure if they were related because there was a pretty good distance in between.
Now, do we usually, obviously in Southwest Virginia, a lot of folks are close to the line. Do we work with Tennessee on cases?
We do. Tennessee Wildlife Resource Agency, I speak with their officers pretty regularly. Usually if it's happening that close to the line on our end of the state, they may have something on their end. We worked cases in the past where we've had a group coming from Virginia, making a loop into Tennessee, killing deer over there and in Virginia. And we worked hand in hand with them to collect evidence to make charges on both sides.
It's good to have friends across the line.
It definitely helps.
So, string of deer, you said this road was heavily traveled, at least in the county. It's kind of a main road.
Yeah, it's pretty popular. It's a normal it's a paved 2-lane road, which in our area, a lot of the side roads are gravel. But it does get traveled pretty regularly and never got any calls. Sheriff's office didn't get any calls.
And so the perpetrator hasn't taken any parts of the deer.
Right. Yeah, that was one thing that was surprising to us. Usually, that time of the year, the deer or the bucks are in velvet. So sometimes we'll see people shooting bucks at that time of the year to try to get one in velvet. That's kind of rare. Or if they're not going to take any antlers, at least they're going to take some meat. None of these deer that we found were touched in any way.
So middle of the summer, obviously out of season.
Right.
And didn't take anything.
Right. And at this time in the summer, it's anywhere from 80 to 90 degrees in the middle of the day. So the deer are decomposing quickly, which creates a big problem for the landowners as well.
Oh, absolutely. So obviously it happened overnight. Mm-hmm. What was the method used, do you think?
So when we had this many deer killed all in one night, and then we start thinking back to the first call that came in, we started to think they were probably more than one person, because a lot of the first deer that were found were all in close proximity. So usually when deer hear a gunshot, they're getting out of town. That was not the case. Several of these deer were located pretty close to each other. So we figured that there's probably more than one person, and that they may be using a suppressor just to kind of dampen that noise, especially with no gunshots being heard on this night.
Well, and you said you also didn't find any shell casings.
Right.
So they either policed their own shell casings or they were in a vehicle?
Right. And a lot of times with a bolt action rifle, if they're shooting from a vehicle, the shell casings are going to be found in the vehicle.
So they took the evidence right with them.
Right.
Now, when we talk about overnight spotlighting, mm-hmm. was that something that you guys investigated and found to have happened in these initial cases?
Yeah, just because during the day, like I said, it's pretty heavily traveled road. We didn't get any calls about dead deer on the side of the road. Usually we get several calls. If somebody finds a dead deer in the middle of the day, they're going to let somebody know, whether it comes in from a citizen or the county, and they're going to let us know about it just in case there may be a disease outbreak or something like that we need to look into.
Absolutely. So describe spotlighting a little bit for me. I've never witnessed it myself, so tell me why people use it. Obviously, my assumption is so they can see, but what does it do to the deer?
Right. So anytime a light is shown in a deer's eyes, just think about if you walk into a bright room in the middle of the night and you turn around and walk back, you can't see anything, right? Your night vision's kind of gone. With a deer, it's kind of compounded. So when a light gets shown in their eyes, they're stunned. They don't know where it's coming from. They don't know their methods of escape. So they just stand there.
They're just shooting fish in a barrel.
Pretty much, yeah. Most of the time, they're not going to be moving at all. Like I said, because they don't know where they need to go to get away from it.
All right.
So usually people will use that light to get the deer. They're going to hold still. Obviously, if they're going to be shooting through the scope, they're going to need some type of light. In this case, it ended up one person was holding the light while the other person was shooting. So it made it much quicker. That's why they were able to kill so many deer in a small area.
Well, unfortunately, from our discussion earlier, it doesn't sound like this is where the case stopped.
Unfortunately not. So like I said, with the first case where it's just one deer, we didn't know if it was kind of a one-off. We just sent out that kind of group message. With a case like this, after we found this many deer all appear to be killed on the same night, we kind of ramped up the investigation. Started making a plan of what areas we wanted to work, who could help when and who could help where. So my area is District 34. It's Lee, Scott, Dickinson, and Wise counties.
The whole southwest tip.
At this time, Lee County was vacant, so it didn't have an officer assigned. Dickinson County was also vacant, didn't have an officer assigned. We had 2 in Wise, 1 in Scott, and a sergeant. So we're working a very large area. Also, it's summertime, so most of the time we're working on the water. So we had to kind of figure out the best way to work it. What do we dedicate our time to? Do we dedicate our time to the boating enforcement on the rivers, checking fishing licenses, or are we going to start working spotlighting, which we usually don't have to start doing until late September, October, and into hunting season. So we kind of developed a rough plan of who was going to work where. We did start working some nighttime spotlight operations around this location where all these deer were found. We worked it for a couple of weeks, never got any more activity, but we did have some more calls come in.
Yeah.
On the 24th, we got a call of 6 more deer that were found, and this is in the Hiltons area of Scott County. So we went from the Lee County line over to the Washington County line, so another 50, 60 miles away. Yeah. So we went out there, investigated. Again, same thing was found. Most of the deer were found shot near the road. No gunshots heard, no vehicle description. So we're sitting there thinking, is this the same people that did it on the other side of the county, or do we maybe have another group starting up on this side? Could it be related to some type of social media thing between
some challenge or something?
We just didn't know. It just seemed very random. Usually when we're doing these spotlight investigations, we have the hunters or the shooters will have a route that they like to take. Whether it's they've been seeing a big deer in the area, it's somewhere they feel safe. There's not a lot of houses or law enforcement patrol in the area.
Easy getaway.
Right. So they know the area well. They feel safe. They can do what they're there to do and then get away without being caught. So being this far away, that's why we maybe thought that it was two different groups.
Yeah, I could see that. Travel that far, just especially, again, not taking anything.
Right.
Just to shoot the deer and leave.
Right.
It doesn't really make much sense to me, but...
No. And as conservation officers, a lot of times we'll get information from the public of, hey, there's a big buck hanging out over here. This might be an area you want to kind of pay attention to. At this point in the year, like I said, all the bucks are still in velvet. Their antlers are growing. We hadn't received any information like that to help us understand why they're picking these certain areas.
Yeah, like you said earlier, there's all different types of deer that were in the field. So
right. Everything from fawns to small bucks. It didn't appear that they cared whether it was a trophy buck, which is what we see most of the time, or even just a mature doe. They were shooting fawns that had just been born a couple months earlier.
So at this point, you've really got to wonder what kind of individual you're dealing with.
Right. A lot of times in an investigation, no matter what kind it is, we're trying to figure out what their motivation is. If it's for big buck and bragging rights, or if it's just to fill the freezer. This didn't appear to fall under any of those. It just appeared that they were out there to kill as many animals as they could.
Well, and from what I understand, they kept on.
Yes. So on 6/27, we got a report. We didn't actually find these deer, but 3 to 4 more were killed in the Hiltons area, about 15 miles from where the last report came in. Same description, no vehicle, no shots heard. So at this point in the investigation, this many calls with no reports of gunshots, we're pretty certain that they're using a suppressor on the rifle. Basically, it's just going to dampen the noise, get rid of that kind of loud crack that most people are familiar with when they hear a gun go off.
Now, tell me a little bit about suppressors. I don't know much about them, but is it a legal way to shoot a deer here in the state, or is it any special kind of registration they have to do for a suppressor or anything like that?
Yeah, so there's a federal registration they have to go to get that suppressor. But as far as hunting with them, it's legal to hunt with them in Virginia during a normal hunting season. Obviously, shooting them at night, everything else has kind of gone out the window.
Yeah, we're out of season, we're at night. There are multiple lines that have been crossed at this point in time. But I can imagine, especially when you said earlier that when a herd of deer hears a gunshot, they're going to run in several different directions. Having a suppressor would...
Right. It makes it harder for them to figure out where it's coming from. And then they've got the light, which is reducing their ability to escape. So we got about a week and a half break with no more calls. We're still trying to work it as much as we can and balance our boating enforcement as well.
It's high season, I imagine. Kayakers, fishermen out and about, and you guys got to make sure that they're safe and they're abiding by the laws as well. Right.
And coming into July, we've got Operation Dry Water, where we've got more intense emphasis on the boating regulations and making sure everybody's being safe. Long hours, lots of different places, but then we've also got this kind of, we don't want to put it on the back burner because it's obviously going to be a big investigation.
Yeah.
So on the 9th, we got another call of 1 deer found.
So July 9th?
Yep.
We're into the second month now.
Absolutely. So yeah, on July 9th, we got another call in Nickelsville, which is just north of Hiltons. But again, another completely different area. So we've got 3 different, seems like prime areas that these people are using. 1 deer was found, no gunshots, no vehicle description. So we're having to kind of go back to the drawing board on where we're working spotlighting. Do we stay where the 11 deer were found in the second call, or do we move over to this area because it seems to be the hot spot? We really didn't know.
I feel like at this point, you'd probably have just as much success throwing a dart at a dartboard.
And that's kind of what we had to do. We did saturation patrols with multiple officers in the same area. We did 1 officer on one end of the county, 1 officer on the north end. Just nothing was working for us. We didn't know where they were going to be, when they were going to be. It was weekdays and weekends. Some of them, we believe, were shot closer to 3 to 4 o'clock in the morning. Some of them as early as 8, 9 o'clock at night. So we didn't have a great time frame or a great day that they would like to go out, it didn't seem.
Well, keep on working the case.
Yep, that's all we could do. So on July 24th, we had a deer shot on Big Stony Creek Road. That's in the Fort Blackmore section, so kind of central to Scott County. So again, a completely different area. Didn't have any vehicle description, no shots heard. And this is, again, a fairly heavily traveled road.
People in Southwest Virginia sleep hard.
Yeah, apparently. But at this point in the investigation, everybody in the community, everybody in the county, for the most part, knew what was going on. Everywhere we went, hey, what's going on with this? Our citizens were a huge part of this investigation.
That's helpful. All those extra eyes, like you said, you were already down a couple of officers in the area, so having the community looking out.
It definitely helped, because I mean, we're just like everybody else. We have days off, so there's things that we're going to miss, or people aren't going to call us directly. Yep. So we get a lot of things by word of mouth. It really helps. On the 26th of July, we had 3 more deer shot on Stony Creek Road in Fort Blackmore. This is the first time we know that they went back to the same place. We did finally get a vehicle description through some cameras that were in the area of a newer model black Chevy or GMC truck that was pulling a trailer with a UTV on it. So finally, we were kind of whittling everything down. All the information we've gathered, we're trying to develop a suspect, try to develop an area where we need to work to hopefully apprehend them before they get too much further.
Yep. And I imagine a truck pulling a UTV, that's fairly distinctive.
You would think. Unfortunately, in Southwest Virginia, a lot of people have UTVs. A lot of people have nicer, newer trucks. It hadn't popped out in anybody's mind. I talked to a lot of people that lived in the area, and nothing popped for them as far as, oh yeah, I know exactly who drives that truck, unfortunately. On 8/12, so again, we're going to do another month, we had 2 more deer shot on Golf Course Road, which is right in the town limits of Gate City. It's within 5-10 minute drive of 3 different police departments and sheriff's offices. So they're getting a little bit bolder. They've kind of gone from the far ends of the county where there's not a whole lot of people, a whole lot of law enforcement, that they're doing this right in town.
So the ego has expanded, and they feel like they can take a few more risks. Right.
And these 2 deer, one of them it was probably the biggest buck that we know of that they harvested. Were killed within 200 yards of a house right in this guy's front yard. The only area they could have shot it from would have put the house as the backstop. So when you fire a weapon, we want you to be safe, know what your target is and beyond. Beyond their target was a house. So that's kind of ramping things up even higher in our investigation.
Absolutely.
Of a need to get there, because it's not only wildlife violations, but it's public safety.
I can't imagine being in my house and having, if that deer ran early or he was off his mark, or it goes clean through and now I've got a bullet in my house.
Right. Anything about situations like this, it's an adrenaline rush for whoever's shooting. Even if you're a hunter that's been doing it for years and years and years, you hear that deer coming through the woods, you get that adrenaline rush. Somebody doing this at night illegally, there's going to be even a higher amount of adrenaline going through it. When I spoke with some of the people in the area, the rumor was that it was a newer black truck. So again, that puts the same description of the vehicle that was of the deer that were killed in Fort Blackmore. So we're starting to feel pretty certain that it's the same group, just going to different parts of the county.
It just seems odd that they're driving all over.
Right. Yeah, it was all over the place. Again, we went back to the church to see if there was any more video, just because we know that that's an area they've frequented before. Didn't find anything that day. A short time later, I think it was on the 13th, I got a phone call from the deacon at that church. That vehicle had come through again, and another deer was found. So we were almost certain at this point that this is the suspect's vehicle we're looking for. Unfortunately, there was no tag number visible or any other identifying features on the truck to narrow it down. I had a baby back in April and was about to start my 2nd month of parental leave when my wife went back to work. I was actually pulling into my house to mark off duty for the last time before I was off for that month. That deacon called me, said, hey, my buddy just got behind that truck and I've got a plate number for you. So that's what really broke this investigation completely, was somebody else, not an officer, not a department employee, just happened to see this truck, knew we were looking for it, and was able to get that tag number.
Goes back to that community support. That right. See something, say something.
Yeah, and that, like I said, that really helped in this case. Scott County is a big county. It's over 500 square miles. Lee County is another big county. We can't be everywhere. We try, but we can't. So we depend on the public for their help. In this case, really showed that that's what we needed.
Now, did they call you directly, or did they call our wildlife crime hotline?
So the deacon, he called me directly, and I was able to contact our dispatch, run that tag, and get the suspect's information.
All right. Again, relationships.
Yeah, it definitely
working
helped.
that investigation.
So at this point, I shared that information obviously with our team, the rest of our district officers. Hey, this is who we're looking for. We kind of did a deep dive on social media. Did find that he'd killed some deer in the past. Didn't find any harvest data from them. We weren't sure if they were killed in Tennessee or Virginia, again, being so close to the state line. That's something we run into quite a bit.
Yeah.
But we had our suspect. We just had to figure out how we were going to catch him.
Now, he didn't have any harvest data, so did he have a license at all, or he just hadn't?
No license, no harvest data in the last several years.
All right.
Which in Virginia, you've got a lot of people that are license exempt hunters. So that we didn't know exactly where he was hunting or where he had killed those deer, if he was actually hunting or if he was just poaching. So I passed that information off to my team. Senior Officer Matt Mead at the time, he's now Sergeant Mead, took over the investigation. He was the one, and Sergeant Arnold, our district supervisor, they were setting up plans for where everybody was going to work. Like I said, we were shorthanded already, and then now I'm taking a month out of the field. So I was sidelined, unfortunately.
But you were enjoying your new family.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. But when an investigation like this, you work for several months, I mean, it kind of consumes you. You want to get to the end of it. You know the county's dependent on you. You want to keep that relationship good. Any information they share with us, I want them to know that we're going to go out and work it.
And I'm sure Sergeant Mead kept you in the loop.
Oh, yeah, I was getting phone calls and text messages daily of what was going on.
So where do we go from here?
So we didn't have any more calls that I'm aware of until the 26th. So we worked hand in hand with the Scott County Sheriff's Office, Weber City Police Department, and Gate City Police Department. They knew the vehicle we were looking for and kind of what these suspects' MO were. On the 26th, an off-duty Scott County Sheriff's Office investigator was going back to his house, saw a vehicle matching that description, just kind of sat there and waited just to see if he may get lucky enough to see these people spotlight. They drove past. About 30 seconds later, he saw a field being illuminated. The only way that field could get bright with light would be if somebody was shining it with a spotlight. So at that point, he marked on duty, went down there, tried to find the vehicle, found the vehicle, but nobody was around it.
So the sheriff's office, the deputy sheriff comes up, vehicle empty. They obviously saw the light out in the field, like you said. There's nobody there.
Right. So the investigator realized again that this is the truck we were looking for, was familiar with the tag. It was a personalized tag. He called his dispatch to get a hold of Sergeant Mead, and several other officers responded. He called a neighboring landowner. The investigator called the neighboring landowner just to make sure that he wasn't out working something in his field. He said that he wasn't, and he would be there shortly. So the landowner showed up, still nobody around the vehicle. Short time later, Sergeant Mead showed up. And then just after that, within 2 or 3 minutes, a truck came down the road with 3 occupants, an older man, a juvenile, and a younger adult. At that point, like I said, we knew who the suspect was that owned the truck, and were able to identify him as one of the passengers. He tried to make the excuse that he believed that he had hit a deer, but the officers didn't see any damage on the vehicle or anything like that.
I think when you hit a deer, you know you hit something, and there's very rarely is there not any evidence.
Right.
Like fur tufts, a dented bumper, something.
Deer usually cause quite a bit of damage when a vehicle hits them. I'm sure most people are familiar with that. But yeah, usually there's going to be some sign there, either blood, hair, damage to the vehicle. They didn't see any of that. So that just kind of confirmed the suspicions that we've had the whole time. During the investigation, we had several other officers from District 33, our neighboring district, respond just to help with interviews, collection of evidence. During the interviews, the adult suspect did admit to shining that night and shooting at a deer. They said they went to look for the deer, which we know at that time they had not retrieved any that we knew about. The juvenile was separated with his parent and then interviewed by another officer, Senior Officer Sheets from District 33. He admitted to holding the light while the driver shot. So that goes back to our whole case of we believe there were two people. One person would hold the light while the other person shot, just because it'd be too hard to do it that quickly and that efficiently, I guess.
Able to kill so many deer.
Right.
In one location.
Right. A lot of times with this case, obviously we want to collect the physical evidence. So we wanted the rifle, we wanted the spotlight, and any other physical evidence that they would have. Some of the officers were, during the interviews, they admitted that they had hid that weapon in the spotlight at the grandfather's house, which was who was bringing them back to the vehicle. They went into the house and located the weapon, which was a suppressed bolt-action rifle, just like we had thought.
Just like you thought.
And a spotlight. So obviously on a case of this size, it's not just going to be a, hey, did you spotlight this field this one time? We've got so many dates, so many locations, so many deer that were killed. It's a very thorough interview. At some point during the interview, the adult suspect, he said, we've shot so many deer in so many different places, I couldn't tell you where they all were. He ended up being pretty cooperative after the initial part of the interview. He showed the officers pictures on his phone of other animals that he had killed we had no idea about. He had shot 2 bears during the summertime, which is obviously it's during the closed season as well as a federally protected owl. So at that point, we seized the phone.
Absolutely.
Because there's evidence of different crimes, of the crimes that they had been committing as well as ones we didn't know about. We seized his phone, the rifle, and the spotlight, took a bunch of pictures, took written statements. And from that point, they kind of went back, and now we're building a case. So the whole time we've been trying to find a suspect, figure out how we're going to catch them, and now we're at the case building stage. We've got to tie all the information we have, either include it or exclude it based on what they admit to, their locations, things like that.
I can't even imagine at this point he's just so void of emotion that he's like, oh, I lost count of how many animals I've killed over the past couple of months. That's got to be a jarring kind of realization.
Right. And most of the time when we're dealing with these, even a large spotlighting case, it's going to be 4 or 5 deer over the period of a couple of weeks. And they're going to give us that reason. Why'd you do it? Well, it was a monster buck. I never thought I'd kill something that big, and I wanted to brag to my buddies. Or I just was trying to fill my freezer. That was not their response. When they were asked why, they had killed so many deer over such a long amount of time, as their statement was that they just wanted to kill things. So as a member of the community as well as a public safety officer, that's definitely alarming. That's outside the norm of what we see. And
definitely a fear of escalation.
Right. Yeah, I mean, at some point they most likely would have gotten bored with what they were doing. We don't know what they would have gone to next, whether it had been livestock or cattle or anything like that.
All right. So you're building your case. You're dotting your I's and crossing your T's.
Right. So with all the information we've gathered, their statements, the firearm, and the cell phones, that ended up being a bigger part of the case than probably what we realized at the time. The big thing was communication between the suspects. We didn't know, with it being a juvenile, if it was something that the adult was just taking them along. They made them go with them, and it was quite the opposite. It was a lot of, hey, do you want to go out tonight? Let's see how many we can kill tonight. And we were able to tie those conversations with the calls for service that we had gotten over the last several months. So there were several dates that we had deer reported that lined up exactly to their text messages. So that made a lot of the case for us. Because we can gather evidence and we can gather statements, but unless we can tie the two together, they really won't help us.
So I think when we discussed it earlier, we were talking about possibly 55 deer for these 2 individuals. When we had everything wrapped up going to court, we ended up with, 33 that we could tie everything together to? We
were fairly confident with the 55 deer that were killed. Unfortunately, there wasn't a text message for every night they went out that we could find. It may have been a phone conversation or in person. Yeah. The 33 that were the ones 100% we could tie to their statements, the text messages, the location data.
And even that is just unfathomable number. 3 months, off season, overnight, 33 deer.
Right, and a ton of waste. In our community, a lot of people enjoy deer meat. A lot of people rely on it as just a food source.
Absolutely.
And like I said, it's a hot time of year. Those deer, by the time the deer were found, they were unable to be eaten.
So it couldn't even be donated to like Hunters for the Hungry or anything like that.
Right. And the landowners were stuck with the problem of having to do something with them. They can't just leave them in their field, especially a lot of these were killed right near their house.
Oh, yeah.
Nobody wants to smell or deal with that.
All right, so you've gathered your case.
Right.
Where do we go?
So we worked hand in hand with the Scott County Commonwealth's Attorney's Office, basically from the first big call we got in June. I think it was the 19th. So as soon as I found out we had that many deer, I kind of clued them in. Hey, this is what we're looking with. I'll keep you updated as we go. So hand in hand the whole way, they knew exactly what we were dealing with, when we developed a suspect, what evidence we already had before we ever caught them. So that played crucial in court. They were very familiar with the case. A lot of times we may have a judge or an attorney that's not very familiar with what we do, what our laws are, or why they're important. By including them in the case for 3 months, they knew exactly why we were so motivated to catch these people and what they were doing and why it was so out of the ordinary. Yeah. So we spoke with them. We were able to figure out what charges were appropriate and were able to get them served. In a case this size, it's usually not something, usually we set a court date a couple months out. It'll go to general district court. It'll be heard. It's over with. A case this size, a lot of attorneys involved. It got delayed and delayed and delayed just because there's so much information to go through. Both sides, the Commonwealth's attorney and the defense attorney, have a lot of information they have to review just to make sure everything's right and the best defense for their client.
So everybody's got their evidence, their defense laid out. We're going to court. How long did it take us to get to court?
About a year.
About a year. So there was that much evidence. Wanted to make sure that everything was straight. A year later, how did we proceed?
So the judge, he's familiar with our cases. We're not in there a ton, but he kind of knows what we do. He actually lives near these areas he was well aware of what was going on in the county that he lived in. He was shocked by the amount, the disregard for public safety, the disregard for hunters and landowners, because things like this tend to give hunters a bad name. Yeah. Somebody that's not informed may believe that, well, that's just a hunter that went out there and did that. That's not a hunter in my eyes, and I don't think in the eyes of our department. Yeah. That's a poacher, a violator. That's all they wanted to do was go out there and violate the law.
That's a criminal.
Yeah. So when it came to court, there was a plea agreement made. Obviously, with that many charges, we had a pretty good idea that not all of them were going to go through. So the adult ended up getting 7 of the charges were finalized, and they were all Class 1 misdemeanors. There were 91 charges taken under advisement for a period of 12 months while he's on supervised probation.
So what does that mean exactly, taken under advisement? So does that mean if he illegally parks at some point that... There's
a certain severity that would trigger all those charges coming back.
Okay, he's not out of the woods yet.
Right.
If he missteps.
Yeah. So if any other violation occurs, we bring that to the judge. All these charges can come back. Okay. He's under supervised probation. He has a probation officer he has to report to. Anything else pops up in that 12-month period, all this can come back. He was required to pay $3,800 in restitution to the landowners. That's something I was glad to see. These people are having to take time out of their day, use their equipment, their fuel, with the cost of everything now. I felt like that was kind of given back to the community that helped us make this case. There was a little over $10,000 in replacement costs for the animals that were killed. And those will go back into the Game Protection Fund. That helps pay for us to be out there. Yeah. There was a 5-year revocation of hunting license or hunting rights. So he won't be able to hunt in our state and several other states. We're part of a compact.
Now with the hunting rights, does that include anywhere that he may be able to hunt without a license, family properties?
Right.
Okay.
And then, like I said, in other states. So he is a resident of a different state. If that state is part of the compact, he won't be able to hunt there as well. Nice. A forfeiture of the rifle and the suppressor, that was actually awarded to the Scott County Sheriff's Office because they were a big part of this case. 12 months in jail suspended, so that would be something that could come back if he were to violate. 12 months supervised probation, 6 years of unsupervised probation, and mental health evaluations.
So the mental health evaluations, that's something when we talked that the judge imposed, because
Right.
obviously you and I talking here discussed how extraordinary the circumstances are on this and how it kind of feels like something you'd see on network television.
Right. In a case like this, the behavior itself is concerning. There was no regard for public safety, no regard for the life of an animal, and the judge saw that. So he wanted to make sure that these people were taken care of if that was needed. With the juvenile, they were convicted of 14 Class 2 misdemeanors. The remainder were taken under advisement, just like the adults. $7,000 in replacement cost, 5-year ban on his hunting license, 28 months of jail suspended, and 24 months of adult supervised probation, and a mental health evaluation as well.
It's a good outcome. It's unfortunate that it happened. I kind of feel good that the judge imposed the mental health evaluation, because after talking with you, it just seems obvious.
Right, and like I said earlier, a lot of times the judges aren't as familiar with what we do. They may not have ever hunted or fished or anything like that. I do feel like he really understood the severity of this case. Of course, there's always harsher punishments or longer jail sentences or something like that, but he did understand the severity and the extraordinary amount of disregard that was given to the public.
All right, so the case is wrapped up, and really it seems like the heroes of this case are our partners. I mean, obviously the CPOs with the department worked for months to wrap this up, but every major break came from somebody calling us, somebody telling us, letting us know that something had happened. Sheriff's office, the general public, seems like the best partners to have out there in the field.
Absolutely. With so few officers in the field, and this goes statewide, we really depend on our public and our other law enforcement partners. They may be in an area where they see something that we may not drive by for 2 weeks. And if we don't know that there's a problem, we can't work it. If we know that there's a hot spot, just like the first call we got, we can start kind of focusing in on those areas. It really helps.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for driving across the state to talk to us about this case and really expose what these two folks were doing and tell us about the good work that you guys are doing out in Southwest Virginia. Thanks so much.
Thank you for having me.
And thank you guys for watching another episode of Virginia True Wildlife Crime. If you see something out there when you're in the field that doesn't seem quite right to you, be sure to give us a call at our wildlife crime hotline. You can also email us. Both of those are on the screen. And if you like the content that you saw here today and don't want to miss another episode, make sure to like and subscribe. And if there's something that you want to hear about that maybe we haven't touched on, give us a shout out in the comments. And thank you so much again for watching, and we'll see you next time.